So I bought this new device from Temu and I'm going to use it in this video. The last video was about quilling, trying it for the first time. Today I'm going to attempt to make a 3D project. And this comes from an idea that I had just winding some of these little quills that you can see to the side and forming different depth of half circles. You quill your circles and then you put it over these domes and then you can sort of form it over into that shape. And whilst doing one of these shapes, it gave me a bit of an idea. So I attached a black, I think there was 3 whites altogether and a silver at the end. And the good thing about this new little device that I've got is that you can quill really lengthy papers very quickly together. In fact, I have to press stop and start on this quite regular because it goes so fast and I want to make sure I've got it the right way. Now I felt this grey was a bit too long, so I just snapped a bit of that off just to make it look how it should do. And as usual, putting a little bit of glue on the end just to secure it in place. So I don't know if you can tell what this is that I'm actually forming at the minute, but hopefully it all will become clearer as I show you what else we can do. Any ideas what this might be? Let me grab the little yellow shape that gave me the idea. And this is how I come up with my ideas. I form something and go, oh, that looks like such a thing. And I put it together. So if I made a bigger one of these, or a smaller one of the black, white and grey I made, maybe you'll be able to get an idea of where it might be. Now the initial colour that I chose for this was because of what I'm actually making. So it needed to be the right shade of yellow. But unfortunately, with all these colours that I did get from this Temu kit, I didn't get a lot of each colour. I had a lot of yellows, but there was all different shades. So I matched them up as best as I could. Still didn't find I had enough of them. So I come up with the idea of it's only the outer side that I need this colour to be. So instead of doing it all in the same colour, because we're not going to be seeing the core of it, I decided to use different colours on the middle, something that I'm not either using a lot of or don't need that much of, and then just using the colour that I've chosen on the outer layers. So once I've chosen all the colours that I'm going to be using, I'm going to be attaching those 4 strips in a row and then we get quilling. I'll put a link for the electric quilling machine in my description just in case you want to check that out. It was really inexpensive, but it really does speed up the process of doing this craft. Any ideas what it is yet? So I'm taking this over to the farm and I'm forming half dome. Just by basically pushing this down over the 2 different sizes just so I can get the right shape. It's the first time I'm actually trying a 3D piece, so once I'm happy with the actual shape, I bring in a cotton bud, get my glue, then I'm squirting the glue around the inside. Quick tip, if your glue dries really quick like this, I discovered that if you put a pin in the end and leave it on your desk, it keeps it nice and free flowing. So once I got enough glue on there, I think I actually put too much glue on. I went back in with the cotton bud and just made that around just so it starts holding it in place. And putting that over to one side while we work on the next bit. So here, like I said, I've got before the inside, a different shade of yellow. All I need is the actual colour that I want on the exterior of the quill. When I put this together, you'll understand why I don't need the actual core of this to be shown. So again, bringing in this electric quill machine. It is quite a cheap one, but it just gives you ideas of other ones that you could look out for. But it does for the time being, it's doing really well. The only thing that I would feel a bit restrictive of with this one is it does only have a certain sized diameter. So obviously if we're going more than say 5-6 sheets of the line quill paper, we probably will need something a bit bigger than that, but that's for future projects. So just making sure that's nice and tight. And there's one. We need another two. So just looking at the size of this, I do realise that the white circle with the black dot and the silver around the edge is too big, so I will be making a smaller one of them, but I will be using this one again in the future for making a second one. As you can tell, it's a bit big, but hopefully by now you should have an idea of what this is going to be. So that's the form, that's the shape that I'm initially after. So for the bottom half, I need a blue that looks like denim. And again, because I've only got a certain amount of these quill papers, I'm looking at doing the inner core of a different paper and then just having the colour that I want on the outer side. The one that I'm making into a dome shape, I'm going to use just the colour that I'm after, because as you spread that out you do see the inner colours as well. So I figured I needed two of the circle rings, and then I'll be looking at doing the third one as the dome shape. But you should be getting an idea by now what it's actually going to be turning into. Just wanted to make sure everything's sort of lined up. It's not perfect, it is my first time, and I do need some practice on getting these sizes the exact size to each other. I'm then going ahead and making the leg size and shapes. There is a couple of things I would change, and this would be one of them. I think the legs for this was actually too wide, which caused some problems later on actually trying to put it together. It worked out in the end, but if I was to do the project again, I will definitely be making those legs smaller in diameter. So just going ahead and putting a thin layer of glue on the outside so I can start attaching these pieces together. Without pressing too hard, I want to make sure I've got a good tight seal between those two. There isn't a lot of paper to start stick onto because it's quite a thin edge on the dome shaped one, but this glue really does work out well. If you want to check the details of the glue I'm using, if you look back at my last video it'll be there, and I'll also try and put it in the description. So just going ahead and gluing these up, spreading it out for an even coating with a cotton bud. I'll probably end up using a toothpick or something similar, maybe like a coffee stirrer or something in the future. But the earbud did work out well. It just absorbed quite a lot of the glue at the same time, which is good if you've put too much on, which I generally did. So I'm sticking these two shapes together, putting these over the top, and basically joining all these pieces to become a one-piece project. So now I'm forming the last blue piece so I can actually use that for moulding it into a dome shape for the bottom half of the body. Sticking that together and leaving that to dry whilst I move on and try and figure out the sizing of this eye. So I took it was less than a quarter piece of the black, I put 2 pieces of the white and a smaller piece of the grey on the outside. and just attaching all those together. Letting the glue dry just while I start attaching the legs together. I've made some little shoes the exact same size as the diameter of the legs in black, and I'm just sticking them on the bottom here. Right, let's get that eye rolled. So I think that's a good size there. We'll put it on in a bit and see if it works. So bringing this mould back in to get this dome shape of the bottom half of the body. And when I originally did this, I did it and stuck it down like I did with the previous one, but the legs wouldn't actually attach. So I'll show you in a minute how I solved that problem. But I just want to stick this eye on, just so it gives me an idea of what it looks like and if it works and if it's the right size, those type of things. And I think that looks pretty good for my first time. Then I turned hairdresser. I needed to make a little hairpiece for this dude. So I'm cutting some very small pieces of black in half. Not all the way down, just enough so sort of give like a separation of the hair. And very time consuming, fiddly time for me putting all this together, but I won't bore you with that. I'll just get it all stuck on his head. Doesn't he look cute? Okay, this is where I was talking about the legs. I found it quite difficult to actually stick it to the base with it being quite rounded. So what I did eventually was actually try to squish the bottom a little bit better to make it more flat to be able to fit these legs on. Like I said, I would have actually preferred to have done these in a smaller diameter so they fit better. It was quite a wide leg. I managed to make this work, and I actually like his little pose when he stands up at the end. And I think if I did the legs of a less circumference, this kind of standing pose that he ends up having and his own little character wouldn't have happened. So, yeah, things happen for a reason, and it does make things look a bit better. So now I'm looking at getting that strap around his head to hold his goggle on, just measuring it up and making sure it's in place. And the good thing about being a multi-crafter like me, or using different products, is I can dip into different tools from different projects. I'm actually using my Cricut tools here. I find these really, really well built tweezers and I use them all the time for different things. And I'm using the little scissors as well. You'll notice in this video I have a plaster on my thumb. That's through me being very silly and trying to clean these scissors of the kind of glue, the adhesive that was left on them, and just using a wipe, which basically cut through the wipe and cut into my thumb. So yeah, that's the plaster that's on there. So just making sure I've got enough glue on there, pulling it round, and then I'm just using my tweezers to put it in place. Snip off the end, and then again bringing in another tool from the Cricut set, which is this little weeder, and I use that just to basically push it into the tiny little space so that it lies completely flat underneath the goggle. I needed to put the back flap and the front flap of the dungarees on so that I could have put his arms underneath and make the straps that go over the arms. Then just taking these fine liners, I'm going in there just to see if I could add a little bit of detail. The idea here was just to go around the shape of the dungarees just to make it look a bit more 3D so it's not actually flat on his body. Just putting like a black line around so it'd be a bit more of a shadow, just to make it stand out a little bit better. So bringing in a picture finally instead of working out of my head, and I should have done this first because I would have been able to model it a bit better. I didn't even remember the guy's name until I brought up this image, and I wanted to just see what details was on the body. I went in a bit harsh with a black fine liner instead of just going on with pencil initially, so next time I do this I will definitely be going on with the pencil and then putting in the details later when I'm actually happy with where everything's placed. Like I say, this was my first attempt at trying this and I will be getting better over time, and I use this as a good learning curve. I wanted to go in and do more of a detailed thing, but my hands just wasn't working. And when I do a bigger size of this project, I will definitely go in there and put in details like stitches and get a better idea of what I could actually use on the project. So this took me a bit of a while to sort out how I could actually form these arms. So I decided to do the normal circle shape but with a black on the outer side of it, so it was yellow on the inside and then the outer side was a black. And I ended up coming up with this idea of quilling them as normal, and then I needed a form to make it into like a triangle shape. What I ended up doing is bringing in a pencil and using that to make a cone shape, and then sticking them onto the body. I wanted it to be a decent length so it didn't look like there was dragging on the floor. But once I put this one in place, I thought if I continue and put the other one on, I'm going to have trouble trying to fit the dome shape on the bottom. So this is where I decided, right, I'm going to stick his legs on. I was reluctant to do this for a while because I didn't want to have to navigate around the base, but I thought this was a good time to put it on. And then that way it moved things out of the way so I can get that arm in place as well. So moving on to the straps of the dungarees, basically measuring in place where this is. They're not exactly symmetrical on both sides, so I did do them at different lengths according to where the strap actually attached. And then basically sticking one side on, leaving that to dry, going over to the other side, sticking that side on, and by the time I'd finished it was time to go back to the other one to finish the strap. And now I'm just going in with a bit of detailing like the buttons on the pockets. I'm just looking at my work now just to see what it looks like. It's okay. It's cute. It's funny, but there is quite a few mistakes, and this has basically been a really good way of learning a new craft and learning what I can do for the next project to be able to make it a bit better. I hope you've enjoyed this. I enjoyed making it, and it looks really cute stood up.
Hello!
Hopefully the next time I come to do this project it will be a bit more thought out and planned. I just was really excited to get use of this new electric quill tool and see what it could actually make with the bigger sizes. It did take a lot less time doing this than the previous project, so hopefully with a bit of experience and the correct tools in place, I should be able to make some better projects for you guys in the future. Hope you've all enjoyed watching today. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you on the next one.
Bye bye!